I had this diagram here on the board, and we talked about the bottom part of this, of imaging or conjecture. We said things like symbols, art, representations, I'll abbreviate here, shadows, we want to include that, reflections. All right. These things are not real. These are all somehow representations. Your bag there, maybe. It's right there. I'm trying to use this as my microphone because that microphone way over there is too far away. These are not real. They're somehow some image of the real thing, representation of the real thing, although these things can be evoke emotion from us, like the prisoners in the caves. We're sometimes moved to laugh or cry or think something was interesting or beautiful or had some kind of reaction to these shadows, although those were not real things. They didn't know it, but those are real things. They're not real things. Above this then is real things. Real things in real world. And there's no other way to talk. You can give examples of this. So if you painted a landscape, well, maybe the landscape was in your mind, or maybe you stood on a landscape and you painted what you saw. Yeah, so we can have all kinds. There are real things. You say art. Well, there are people. You draw paintings or make a sculpture of a person. Yeah, there are really people. You see a reflection of yourself. Well, there is a real you. That's right. We could add music, of course. We could put some of the arts, I guess, but music might represent something. Even if it's just instrumental music, it might represent something. So it could be an emotion. Emotions are real. Don't need to be evoked by music. Has anyone ever seen it? There's a movie about Beethoven. Who's the actor who played Commissioner Gordon in the Batman movies? You know what I'm talking about? You know the actor's name? I really like him, and I can't think of his name. Well, he plays Beethoven in his movie. By the way, he's a really good actor, and I can't think of his name right now. Beethoven, the Beethoven.
Oh, was it like, I think I saw the movie. Was he like upstairs really loud and like the wax ceiling?
The what was what?
The wax on his candles were like.
I don't remember that, but it could be. It's a long movie. Yeah. It could be. Anyway, this actor is really good. You'd know his name if I said it. He won an Academy Award, I think, for something else. But in his career, he's played Sid Vicious of the Sex Pistols and Beethoven. Now that's acting, right? That's a real stretch. Yes, ma'am. Imaging, symbols, art, representations. Yeah, so anyway, in this movie about Beethoven, he's listening to, this man who becomes his associate is listening to a piano violin concerto and written by Beethoven. Of course, this man has no idea what Beethoven looks like, because things were not, people didn't text pictures to each other instantly across the world. No one knew what people looked like. And so Beethoven walks into the room while this guy's enjoying this concerto, and he says loudly, because Beethoven didn't have good hearing, said, "How does it sound?" And the guy's like, "Shh, stop, don't talk so loud." He's like, "Well, I'm sure whatever it is, they're making a muck of it, so I'm sure it's, And they just keep on playing, and he says, I'm Ludwig van Beethoven, and he's like, oh my gosh, and he says, and I wrote this, concerto, because, and he starts telling him like the reason behind it, like the story behind the music, although there's no words. And once you hear what the story is and you can apply it to the music, you realize it is that. And he was trying to get to his lover in another town, and the wheel or on his coach broke, like split in half, and it's raining and it's muddy and they're kind of already stuck in the mud already. And then the coach driver's trying to use this piece of metal to like put the wheel back together again. And Beethoven's sitting in the coach, and he has a limited window of time that he can see this woman. And he knows that every minute that goes by will be one less minute he'll be able to be with his lover. And then he tells the man, he says, and this is the sound of my agitation. Yeah. And then right about that time, the music becomes agitated, I guess. You can really apply it to okay, well, this was a real thing that happened to him. Real event that happened, which he's representing in music. Wonderful. Of course, we would say that's beautiful. It's wonderful. It's really a great scene in a movie. But he gives a longer talk about how music impacts people, about how it touches the soul, how it elevates you, how it can take you and to places that other stimuli, can't do. So, yeah, a mass has a certain kind of music to it. A march, the Germans like that, right? Marches that have a certain, it pulls something out of you that no other type of exterior stimuli can do. Anyway, so there really was a situation, and he wrote music about it. There really was a landscape. He painted it. Someone did. You see a reflection? Well, it's yourself. You have emotions? Well, those emotions are real. You can maybe write about them. You can make art about them. Okay. So real things in the real world. Fine. Also on this level, there's another thing that we would say it's going to seem a little bit distant, but has anyone taken psychology, by the way? Is it AP psychology? Okay, good. I'm glad we're teaching that again. We didn't have it for a long time. Is it good? Is it a good class? Good. You guys are going to dissect the brain or something, or bisect the brain, maybe? I hear things coming out of that room. I don't know. There's one, if you haven't talked, and this may not be the kind of thing you talk about but Piaget, does that name sound? I don't know if you've got this guy. Piaget, he did a lot with how people acquire language, like in a native setting. So as most all of you, I think, learned English, you learned it, just from hearing it. And after a while, you realize certain words got you certain things, and you began to right. But at a certain point, though, you realize that you can begin to label things, put a word to something, and it refers to that thing. So you realize that what appears to be a precise cut piece of paper, longer and more narrow this way, is called a poster. Yeah, you put a frame on it and you call it a picture. Maybe. That a piece of fabric like that has different stripes and colors on it is called a flag. But there could be other things that are fabric that have stripes on them that are not flags, I suppose. And so the kid begins to learn that, okay, what I thought was a flag is not a flag. I need to, and so Piaget has this theory. We probably would have labeled it differently today with computers, but he called it kind of the file cabinet theory, where a kid learns what words to apply to these real things that he perceives, or she perceives. Poster, let's say. Okay, well, a poster's, about as tall as I am as a kid learning this, and about as wide as I am, and okay, and it's not have a frame, there's a frame around it, and they make a file for that with all this information in it, and they put it in their file cabinet labeled poster. And yeah, let's better example. At the zoo, let's say you go to the zoo and you're taking this kid. Anyone have brothers, sisters, nieces who are about this age where they're asking like, what's that? What's that all the time? Like there's this period, it's really an important developmental period. All of us went through this. What's that? What's that? And Piaget says they're making files. They're making files in their head. And they're able, like a computer, they're able to recall those files and bring them forward and use that word again. So you go to the zoo and, you know, you see a horse and the kid says, what's that? Well, that's a horse. And the kid makes a file for horse. Okay, 4 legs, tail, long nose, about that tall, whatever he sees, he makes a file for it. Then they go to the next exhibit and there's a zebra. And the kid says, look, a horse. Right? Well, no, that's not a horse. Now that's a zebra. And the kid makes a new file. Zebra. Looks kind of like a horse, yeah. Black and white stripes, right? Vertical stripes. Maybe some smaller, maybe wider. I don't know, whatever the differences are. And they make a new file for zebra. Then you go to the next one and there's a giraffe. And they, look, a zebra. No, that's a giraffe. New file, right? Longer neck, not striped, more articulated looking markings. Okay, all right. But the closest thing that kid had to draw on maybe was a zebra at that point. So a trip to the zoo, you know, people take their kids to the zoo or to the park or wherever, because that kid gets a chance to kind of see new things, absorb new things, and, you know, label these new things. So on this level here, you know, I see something, and I believe what I'm seeing is what I see. I see a landscape. I see people. I see cows. I see horses. And I learned what a cow was a long time ago. Although I learned only visually what a cow is, I don't know anything else about cows. I'm confessing this to you. I did go to the finest agricultural school in the country without taking any agriculture courses. I did have a psychology class, however, in the animal husbandry building, which is kind of weird. Yeah, you don't even want to know what goes on there. But apparently there's a lot of money in it, I guess, if you could race horses. I forget it. Anyway, so, but all I know from cows, like if I see a cow, I go, hey, look over there, cows, yeah? Look at that cow. It could be that someone who knows a lot more about, who did get a degree in something in agriculture, would know that that's not a cow, that's some other animal. It looks like a cow, but if you look closer, you'll see there's a difference, yeah? Okay. I didn't know, I never heard of that animal before. And even as an adult, I could make a new file. Now, it happens less and less the older you get, right? When you're little, you're making files like constantly. But at this level, we begin labeling things, and that process slows down, but doesn't end, though. I still learn that, oh, that's some hybrid, or that's some other animal that just looks like a cow. So this is a very fallible level as well. Yeah, so I use the example over and over again, but people, you know, all right, so we got representation, and then I've seen a lot of video of Bigfoot and pictures, but I say I really see one, right? Wow, or I think I do. A lot of people think they do, Helena. They think they see Bigfoot all the time. Yeah, I'm on a bunch of Facebook groups. People got pictures all the time. All very blurry and grainy and, all right. But maybe that's not what they're seeing, yeah? There's also a phenomena, oh my gosh, I'm having a brain problem this morning. A phenomena, I'll think of the name in a minute, where, pareidolia. Have you heard of this, pareidolia? Where your brain, when it looks into like, when your eyes and brain work together, when you look into like a wooded area, let's say, kind of a densely wooded area, and you can't really make sense of like branches and there's markings on the tree, or the trees have their natural bark and all that. And maybe your brain is always kind of trying to make sense of what it sees. It's trying to draw on these familiar ideas and images that you have, and your eyes are looking for things that make sense. And it could be that that tree and the bark on the tree and the shadows just perfectly look like a face. And your brain tells you, hey, look at that face. It's like looking at clouds, right? You look at the clouds sometimes when you're a kid, and it looks like but it's maybe a little more realistic than that, because you're looking into the forest and you're looking for Bigfoot, and you see Bigfoot, or you think you do, right? So remember the last quiz we had, our senses are fallible, and pareidolia is a good example of that, where you really think you're looking right into something, but really it's like a burned out trunk of a tree, and it kind of looks like maybe the back of something standing up, and is that a person or some kind of hairy, tall creature? I can't tell. Wow. Okay. Take a picture of it. You saw it yourself. But these levels are fallible, though. And so these are what those are referred to, the levels of opinion. Not because like a normal kind of opinion, but just a level of, I believe that's what I'm seeing. Yeah. I believe that's, yeah. And these levels down here then are, of course, maybe open to interpretation, or perhaps are only maybe geared towards a certain person of some sort. But these levels are all fallible, these two bottom levels. What I think I see, what I'm feeling may not be the emotion I should be feeling. I don't know. Whatever the thing that I see, what I think it is not really what it is. Very possible. I see this right here. I see this every day. And this appears to me to be a chair. And does it appear to be anything else to anyone else? This right here. I've been doing curls, so come on. Take a look. At least take a look. Just veins rippling, isn't it? You see it? I should put more oil on my arm for you. Put more time in the tanning booth. It looks like a chair. And there's a really good chance that because it's fallible, but it's still pretty accurate though most of the time. And so I see this and I think it's a chair, and I sit down in it, and no one laughs at me, and no one says, why are you sitting on that? It's a chair. It is a chair. My senses tell me that. My history, my experience tells me that it is. Fine. But is it possible you could go to some other country, maybe say someplace more exotic like Japan or something, and you sit down on a thing that you think is a chair, but it turns out it's actually a large cutting board for cutting up fish or something. I don't know. Look like a chair. A lot of people go to France. A lot of Americans go to France, and they try to do their business in a bidet. Who knows what a bidet is? All right. So that the fact that only 2 or 3 hands went up tells me you might try to use the bidet as a toilet. But it's not. But it sure kind of looks like one though. Like a urinal or something on the wall, right? It's not what it's for, but it's right there next to the toilet, isn't it? Usually. Yeah. These hotels love to have Americans come by. I got to draw a picture of the bidet. Don't use this for, anyway. Right, it could happen. It does happen. All right, back to the cows real quick. So as we move across this line here, we move into the area of knowledge. So opinion down here, fallible. Could be right, could be wrong. I think this is a chair. I think that's a cow. But knowledge. So on this level, we have scientific and mathematical understanding. Let's say I'm going to abbreviate mathematical for understanding. And we'll just say over here, concepts of math and science to shorten it up. All right. So where I see a cow, someone who really knows science could tell you exactly what makes that cow a cow, as opposed to some other kind of 4-legged animal. They know. They know what differentiates a cow from, a large dog, from a zebra, from other 4-legged animals that might be out in the field. Not just from physical appearance, but on a scientific level, they understand. And they understand it on an absolute level. It's knowledge. It's solid. What makes a cow today makes a cow 500 years ago and 500 years in the future. if cows are still around. I hope they are. But they understand on a scientific level. So there's this comic that I saw, and believe me, philosophy humor is so funny. I'm already laughing just thinking about it. So in this comic, Plato goes to a horse dealership. Yeah, I don't like a car dealership. A horse dealership, and he says to the salesman, "Yeah, I want to buy that horse over there." And the salesman says, "What horse?" There's like a whole bunch of horses by him. "What horse?" "That horse right there." "What are you talking about?" "That horse right there. I want to buy it." "How do you know that's a horse?" "I'm looking at it. It's a horse. I want to buy it from you. Sell it to me." "No, you can't have it." No. Plato comes back the next day. "I want to buy that horse over there." "What horse?" "That horse right over there." "What horse are you talking about?" "How do you know that's a horse?" And then Plato tells them, it's a horse because it's a domesticated quadruped with 32 chromosomes. This whole list of things that makes a horse genetically and internally and uniquely a horse. And the horse salesman says, "Good. Now you can have the horse." So it's like the salesman is operating up here. Plato was down here. That one, the one I see over there. It's that thing I recognize. And the salesman's like reaching down to Plato and saying, "Come on, give me your hand. I'll pull you up here. We'll go higher up the ladder. We'll be working on a different level now of scientific understanding." Yeah. It's not really funny, I guess. You know, it's not like funny, like, you can't tell it at a comedy club. I tried it, Brock. It doesn't go over very well. Even with a lot of liquor. You tell it later in the evening. No, 2 drink minimum is not enough at that place. Not for me. Not for my act. I had some friends who, I went to college in Germany for a year, and I had some friends who, needed to get certain requirements because we got credit for the classes we took there. We would count back here in the States, and they were taking math classes in Germany. And I said, "Why are you taking math? Like, that seems so, weird, And they said, "Well, math is math. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter where you take it. I mean, yeah, I'd maybe take some time to read the instructions or the explanation of how to do something. But as far as just the work goes, it's a international language, maybe even universal language. Math is just math, right?" I've never thought about that before. You see the movie Contact? The movie Contact? No? Yes, good movie with the aliens, right? Yeah. And the only way that they have to communicate with the Earth is, well, at first, is through these pulses that come into that SETI station where they're monitoring for what's it called? Something for extraterrestrial intelligence. SETI is it's a real thing. I think it's in Central America somewhere. And big satellite. And they start getting these pulses. At first, it's like boom, boom, boom. And after a few minutes, they send 5 pulses. And they keep increasing. And someone realizes, they're only sending us prime numbers. And the number of pulses are in prime numbers. And someone says, why are they doing that? And the person, because it's universal. It would be something that we would all understand, or supposedly we would. I think Carl Sagan wrote that book. He was a pretty smart guy, Carl Sagan. You heard of him? Carl Sagan? Okay. You guys ought to get out more. I don't know. You know what your cave is? That phone right there. Sure. That's okay. All right, we all have our caves. I got my cave. YouTube. But on my TV, I like it because the cave is more comfortable, right? I'm trapped down there, man. It's tough. All right. So now this is an absolute level. What makes a cow here makes a cow in some other place in the world. Mathematics, maybe even universal. But this is a level of knowledge that's absolute. And this is one of the reasons the Greeks are really fascinated with mathematics in particular, is because it is absolute. The answers are, right? It's just, I mean, it's not like this class, right? Where I'm going to grade these quizzes and there might be several answers that are, but in math, it's not that way, right? I mean, math, the answer is 9 or it's nothing, right? It's wrong. Hope you guys are doing math beyond that, aren't you? Your answers in math aren't just like whole numbers. They're like decimal. You're doing decimals by now, right? 9.73. All right. But the answer is the answer. The answer is absolute. Now, they might want to see how you arrived at that answer, what method you used to get there. But beyond that, though, the SAT doesn't care about that. They just want to know, do you know the answer? It's absolute. And this fascinates the Greeks because everything else seems to be rather flexible and rather relative. All right, we'll talk about this next part up here tomorrow. The top rung. We'll see if this works.